Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about Roony Bardghji, a player that has been linked to FC Barcelona. We're going to be discussing who this player is and what this means for the future of Toni Fernández and Lamine Yamal. So on November 8th, 2023, a 17-year-old wearing the number 40 shirt collected a loose ball at the Parken Stadium, chopped inside and lashed a 87-minute winner past Manchester United. Roony Bardghji arrived on that night, sealing a 4-3 comeback that everybody was talking about in Europe. And 2 years later, Copenhagen, which is the team that he does represent, celebrated a record-breaking 16th Superliga championship in May 2025. And Bardghji, still only 19 years old, now currently has medals to really match his hype. Now here's the thing, there was a career pause for the player. There was a huge concern back on May 2024 when he encountered an ACL tear that ruled Bardghji out for almost a year. And he just returned back on March 31st, 2025 after being out for 334 days. And he came back lighter, hungrier, and was already back in the squad for Copenhagen's title run. Now, in the season that we have just finished, the injury is going to be explaining the reason why he has been so underwhelming. It is simply because, look, he had 6 appearances, played 243 minutes, and could not really find any goals or assists, but yet scouts were still looking at the player because he was simply just that good. In this past 3 to 4 months, he has really showcased that he has not really lost a lot ever since the ACL injury. Many do believe that he is still operating at 90% of his capacity, but he is still getting there and still very much a young player. Transfer market still values him at 7.5 million euros with a contract that does end on December 31st, 2025, meaning that if Barcelona were to try and sign the player, he would be around 6 to 7 million euros, and if they want to get him for free later in the year, they could, because he is showing no signs of trying to renew with Copenhagen. He believes that now it is time for him to make the upgrade. We do have a couple of reliable sources claiming that this week Barcelona have reopened talks, and with that being said, there are other clubs out there that do want the player like Porto and Marseille. Barcelona were interested back in the summer of 2024, but ever since he encountered that ACL injury, they waited because they wanted to see how was he going to perform when he came back. But now Barcelona are going in full throttle. Catalan outlets are claiming that they are having direct conversations with Copenhagen, and it has already been taking place. The player even stated that he has a lot of desire to really step up, and that has fueled the Barcelona's optimism that a fee under 15 million euros max could really seal the deal. And the reason why Hansi Flick has been paying close attention is because, look, Flick always wants wingers that can stretch low blocks. Bardghji has that in his toolbox. He is somebody who can receive from out wide and cut inside from the right. A lot of scouts have claimed that he has explosive dribbling and very good close control. Another principle that Flick is going to be carrying is the vertical transition, as we always do discuss. Bardghji has quick takeoffs with and without the ball. This is very important because Flick's side, and we know this, he does favor quick direct attacks after we do regain the ball. Flick also wants coordinated high press from his wingers, and this is a player that averages 16 pressures per 90 minutes, and this was pre-injury, and he has been able to replicate those exact same numbers post-injury. Barcelona led La Liga in possession at 66.5%, and that is mainly because they press aggressively, so it's going to be very important. And Bardghji at Copenhagen, he was the first trigger. Now here's where it does get very interesting, right? Because this is a player that does play on the right wing position. Now we are talking about a position that contains 2 players, Lamine Yamal and Toni Fernández. I do not know the exact idea on where Bardghji is going to go at. Like, maybe there is the chance that he could go to Barça Athletic or just go straight into the first team. But I believe that if he were to come straight to the first team, he's going to have to fight a lot, because trying to sit down Lamine Yamal is almost impossible. Trying to take on the position of Toni Fernández, who has been training with Barça Athletic over the past 2 or 3 years, is going to be very difficult. Like, could we talking about buying this player just so we can loan him out to a different club and bring him in maybe a year later? It'll be tough to say, because if we're talking about spending under 15 million euros on a player like him and then loaning him out, I don't think that's the best solution. I believe that if you were to spend money on a certain player, any sort of money, you want to have him in the first team and immediately. All in all, this is definitely a player that would be within our group of youth players that are ready to prosper. Like Cubarsí, Lamine Yamal, Alejandro Balde, Bardghji could slide naturally into this next generation core that is designed to really peak in 2027. And I believe that because he has just came back from an ACL injury, and if he were to come to a team like FC Barcelona, the patience pathway is going to be essential. Like, take the Pedri model, not the Dembele model. And one of the things that I would say that he would need to work on is to refine interplay in tight lanes, because in La Liga, you're going to constantly face those compacted blocks. However, his decision making has impressed Copenhagen's coaches, who praise his tactical maturity beyond his years. But obviously, you know, every time you do go in La Liga, it is always a different story, just like how Mbappe was struggling in the first 2 or 3 months on how to face these low blocks, something that he did not face back in the French league. So I believe that Bardghji embodies the attributes of whatever Flick does crave from his wingers, with that turns into incision pressing hunger, and great decision making. Going back to Toni Fernández though, like I know that many are going to be a little, I would just say, worried about his future because look, Hansi Flick has called up Toni Fernández to go into the preseason, which will be starting in about 2.5 weeks. Toni Fernández is 16 years old and will be turning 17 in July. He's also a left-footed right winger, very similar to Roony Bardghji. He also just had his first team debut in January's Copa del Rey win at Barcelona, and Hansi Flick has huge plans for him. He's going to take him to the preseason tour in Asia with a clear message: impress and you can stay with the first team next year. His skill sets is also amazing with explosive acceleration, inside cut dribble, instinctive finishing. He has 4 goals in 11 B team games. If Bardghji were to be signed, knowing that he's 19 years old, knowing that he has more experience in first team football, our right wing position could contain 3 total players. Lamine Yamal as the first choice, with Bardghji as the second choice, and then third choice will be either Toni Fernández and maybe even Raphinha, a player who can also play in that position. But the development that Toni Fernández is going to want, it's going to be really hard to find because a healthy Bardghji who could arrive, he has Champions League experience. So even if we have Champions League games, Bardghji could really find those minutes, and that is something that Toni Fernández was probably looking for. So Toni Fernández must outshine a 19-year-old who has already been through 3 Superliga medals and has showcased that he can perform on Champions League nights. And so here's going to be my, I would say, advice for Toni Fernández if he really does want to make it, because I think that he is probably one of our most talented players in La Masia today. Flick has a youth policy, right? The coach handed competitive debuts to 5 Barça teams this season, and he said this back in March: if they press well, they play. This is a mantra that kept 17-year-old Lamine Yamal in the starting 11. If Toni Fernández can bring the exact same thing, he will play. I would also say that Toni Fernández should not think about trying to move anywhere else. Maybe just try and continue to impress Flick, because look, going into the next season with 60 plus matches across 5 competitions, even with 3 players in the exact same position, they can all reach at least 1,800 minutes, and that is a huge upgrade to whatever Toni Fernández got last season. And that is it, right? Bardghji could take the right wing position with Lamine Yamal in the next season. That could push Toni Fernández back from developing, but all in all, it's going to be resting in his own hands, right? Toni Fernández would have to take massive responsibility, accountability, work hard, and just hope for the best. And I believe that this signing that Barcelona can make with Bardghji is going to sharpen Toni Fernández. It's more of a challenge than a roadblock, in my opinion. Something that could sharpen his skills all in all and his trajectory if he does embrace it well. And so that is it. That is going to be wrapping up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.